Good morning. As you can see, it is the next day. My phone cut out on me yesterday, so I'm going to do this in a two-part because of that. Higgins is working on his part of his food for today. Very noisy. But I'm gonna talk about the last two of the four categories. I'm going to talk about corrections and tools today. Good one. I'm going to be looking down here because that paper plate of notes is down here. Oh, you had to get it caught in the one spot that you get it caught in. Alright. Well, apparently not the one spot. You're going to get caught over there too. You are silly. So, corrections are not a bad thing. I think that dog training society has played them out to be something bad when they're not. There's literally no... Sorry for the noise. Alright, buddy, here. How about we give you these scattered for right now so you're not so noisy. You scatter them around your toys and stuff. There. That way we don't drive people nuts with the sound. Alright. So there's no realm in life that works without consequences, which is basically what corrections are. I mean, consequences, there's good and bad consequences for anything that happens, really. So, examples of that would be a boss would give corrections to an employee. Laws are set up so that corrections can be given to people. Parenting, you give corrections. Owning or raising dogs, you give corrections. It's just part of our world, and to call it something different than it is doesn't change what it is. Even people that say they're positive only, they'll use a leash. Well, a leash is a tool for correction. Corrections keep those that are corrected safe, really. They're safety measures. We're not talking extreme levels. There's plenty of obvious examples out there of what extreme levels of like abusive stuff. I don't need to get into that. It's obvious. It doesn't need to be covered here. So when I'm talking about corrections, I'm talking about appropriate consequences for something that is not okay to do. Specifically in dogs, obviously. So, again, my lovely note paper here. So there's different levels of corrections. So, for instance, like the lowest level of correction is actually a neutral. So how a lot of people will say, oh, if the dog does something you don't want them to do, you can just ignore that behavior and then wait and reward good behavior. Well, technically that's a correction. It's something that you're stopping doing. Like if you're playing and the dog bites you, some people will say, oh, just, be limp and stop playing. Well, that's a negative. So technically speaking, that's a correction. It's just a super low level one. So that's like a neutral correction. And then there's soft corrections, which is like a or like a hey, like kind of like a knock that off, type of thing. That's like a soft correction, or simply removing a dog from the the area or whatever. That's all corrections. That's all just soft or low-level corrections. And then you have medium corrections, which are like, well, anything can be used for all different phases, but there's leash corrections can be soft or they can be medium. Actually, same with a e-collar used correctly. There's many tools to give corrections, which we'll get into in the tools section next. But and then there is also hard corrections are sometimes needed. A lot of people don't like that, but that's life. Sometimes hard corrections are needed to keep people or dogs safe. Obviously, we're talking about dogs here, so I'm going to stick with that. But sometimes a heavy correction is needed in order to save the dog's life, and that's just how it is. People don't like it, but it's reality. So those hard corrections do need to be used appropriately, and oftentimes a professional is needed to give the exact timing. For instance, with snake breaking a dog or deer breaking a dog. If you wonder what those are, you can look those up. I'm sure there's information on that. If not, ask me in the comments and I'll explain it. But those are things that are, it seems harsh to the dog. It seems, I mean, not to the dog, but like to people looking at the dog. It seems like it's a harsh thing, but it saves the dog's life in the long run. So it is necessary. Let's see what. So like, oh yes, I was talking about hard corrections. Another example of a hard correction would be basically what I call a hard correction is something that is a hard correction can be allotted or required if a dog knows better, like it's a thing that they already know solidly and they are not doing, and if it's unsafe for the dog. So if the dog's going to be injured and it already has been trained to know not to do something, a hard correction is sometimes needed to end the behavior so that the dog remains safe. An example would be a dog repeatedly, basically kind of like a repeat offender, a dog repeatedly getting in the garbage when it's already been trained not to. That can be very dangerous. The dog could get sick or even die from things that it would pick up in the garbage. So that is required to be a heavier, yes, buddy, huh? A heavier correction or punishment in order to keep the dog safe and stop the behavior. That's not something that just can continue. And so that would be like a physical, I mean, there's many ways you could do it, but it could be considered more like a physical correction, whereas like you take the dog, I mean, the dog's already there, it took out the trash all over your house, and you might grab the dog and swat it on the butt, like a spanking. Those are not a bad word, People these days think of spanking as something terrible, and it's not. It just needs the right usage. Anything should have the proper usage and not be misused. You can misuse rewards and stuff just as you could misuse corrections, actually. So anyways, I'm starting to ramble. I'll move on. So the appropriate level to diminish the behavior. That's kind of the key. You don't need to go excessively, but if you go too soft, where it doesn't take away the behavior, then it's of no use. Hi, buddy. So yeah, you can use many different things for correction. You don't need a tool for correction. It can be verbal, like I already said, the or the no. It can be body language, walking into the dog. It's also called displacement. But like moving the dog by your body, making a point like that, that can be a form of correction. So that's body language correction. Obviously tools, and then obviously physical. No, 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 no. You can't have the camera. You can't have the camera. I'm sorry. So like that, there's a prime example. That is a extremely low level correction if we want to be technical about it. Yes, if we do. So that's my stance on corrections. You got me on the nose. So, and then that brings us to tools. And the interesting thing with tools, there are tools that are made for helping give rewards. There are tools that are made for helping give corrections. But the interesting point is that the large majority of tools are designed for aiding and giving correction. And I find that really interesting in the dog training world today, because so many trainers will say that corrections or punishment is a bad thing, yet they will be using these tools. It's like, well, what were these tools designed for? And they'll say, well, they're communication tools. Okay, what is communication? Communication is a discussion, is a two-way conversation between two living creatures. Well, any conversation, take a conversation that you're going to have with another person. Can that conversation proceed and be a full conversation if only the word yes is used? If no word of no is used, can that be a conversation? Not really. So that is kind of a point of that, even if people that say they don't use corrections oftentimes do, they just call it something different. Now with tools can be used obviously for good or bad. Tools can be misused. You can also misuse things that are not tools. Like you can still injure a dog without using a tool. Can a tool injure a dog? Yes. But it doesn't automatically injure a dog. It's using a tool correctly and learning how to use that tool before using it on your dog. That is what you should be doing, in looking into what the tool was designed for by the people that designed it is a good idea. Not taking someone on the internet's explanation of it, because you're going to get every different type of explanation. But instead look at what the tool was actually developed for, and that might give you some more insight. Sorry, my throat is a little froggy. It's it's the morning, and sometimes it takes a little bit for my voice to catch up with me in the morning. So yeah, so it can be used correctly or incorrectly. Again, I'm looking at my notes, so I'm looking down. And there are many options. Hang on, I've got Higgins block down here from Shasta. I gotta open up Shasta's whimpering there. Hi, Shasta. Yes, I know. How dare I block you off, huh? So, so there's many options with tools, obviously. I mean, you've got pretty much anything you want to talk about used in dog training is a tool. But we're talking like physical tools. So like a leash and collar, just a flat collar. Like what's on Higgins here is just, this is a tool. Really, buddy? You're in the way. The camera can't even see you. It's not, you're too close. But the, so yeah, collars, harnesses, halters, choke chains, martingales, prong or pinch collars. Okay, buddy, you're gonna end up knocking the camera down. Come here. Yes. You know, e-collars, target sticks, heel sticks, which it's an old thing used. You might not know what that is. That's was used in old times, and I actually have used it with Shasta, where you use it for positioning. So I've used it with horses too, where you like use the stick to show them how far forward you want them to work beside you. Those are all tools. They can be used, obviously, good or bad, like I said. And you're going to need to figure out what tool works best for you and your dog. It's not a cut and dry, hey, this tool works for every dog thing. The main point with tools is a tool can never fix something. It should not be looked at as fixing something. Thank you, Shaz. Come here. Come lay down. Thank you. Good girl. So a tool doesn't fix things. A tool aids you in training. A tool is not training. So there's a difference. She has a bad beard day. You have a bad beard day. Gotta brush that, don't we? So a tool aids in training. It does not train. So nothing can fix behaviors except training. But tools can aid in helping train or retrain those behaviors. So that's an important part, because a lot of people seem to say, hey, I have this problem with my dog. What tool can fix it? Like I said, you're not going to have a tool that fixes it. You're going to have training that fixes it, and you may have different tools that will aid in that training depending on the issue and depending on your dog. So that's the kind of the most important thing, I think, to bear in mind with tools is that key point, that they're not training themselves. They are an aid to training. And there's many options to choose from. A clicker is a tool as well. Your voice is definitely a tool. Body language, all those things, really. But tool, we're talking more like physically built things to help, so that would be more understandable. My final point as an overall to this two-part series of training based points is kind of more of like a philosophy thing. I think it's very important, and it can help you in if you're looking for a trainer. It can help by bringing it up in conversation when you're talking to the trainer and seeing what their response is, and that is, do they think they know everything about training a dog? So you can't, when you're working with animals especially, you can't ever know everything there is to know, because you've never been in every situation. No matter how skilled, how long you've trained, you feel like you've kind of seen everything, there's still going to be something more to learn. I mean, you're working with a live creature. There's going to be something more to learn. And if you don't have that mindset of learning while you're teaching, then you've already lost. And in my opinion, that's not a very good example of a trainer. I definitely would not let someone train my dog if they said, well, I know everything there is to know about training. I would definitely not go to that trainer. Because the key point is that in order to train, you have to be constantly learning also. That's just a really, really big point that I think a lot of people kind of brush over but don't really focus on, and it's a very big issue. It's just, there's somebody that had a quote, and I don't remember the whole quote, but part of it, the gist of it is that when you're dog training, the only true teacher is the dog. And there is something to that, because each dog should bring you something new. Like, each dog should teach you something further than you knew before. And the only way you're going to be able to pick up on that is if you're looking for it, if you're willing to learn, if you have that mindset of learning more, working with the dog rather than working at the dog. So that is a huge point in training. So yeah, very important. So just checking over my notes, make sure I covered everything that I wanted to there. I think we covered pretty much all of it. So yeah, if this was helpful, hope it was helpful. Go ahead and like it if you like it. If you have any questions on any of it, comment, and I'll be glad to discuss all this stuff with you. If it was helpful and you know someone else that might benefit from some of this information, please share it to them. If you want to see more of this information or more of Higgins growing up, you can subscribe. I'll try to get some footage today, or going to town to train with him, but we'll see. I don't know what it's going to be like yet. I don't know if you saw earlier, I did just get an alert from Shaz. That's an early alert, so we'll see what the day goes like. But yeah, I hope this was helpful, and hope you enjoyed it. Bye-bye.